AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
AFR. Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
Hour 2, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Relief Windows. I'm Matt.
Love you, Matt.
Paul O'Neill.
They're chanting Paul O'Neill's name.
Muso. And Mr. Toby Tom Blake. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there, make it a good one. Ross Jackson, about 15 minutes. Talk some Saints. Regular season wrapping up. The season wrapping up for the Saints. 6-11 finish year one under Kellen Moore. Go over their win total. Projected, depending on where you do your shopping, 4.5 or 5.5. But strong finish. Tyler Shuck has cemented himself as the guy, certainly for 2026 and hopefully for much, much longer than that. So we'll talk some Saints in about 15 minutes. I do want to talk about JT Lindsey. You remember JT Lindsey's story. Alexandria, top 150 overall prospect, was arrested last year during fall camp, missed the entire season. His legal situation has been rectified, and he has been invited by Lane Kiffin and the staff to return in 2026. So I want to talk about that. We'll get to it in just a little bit. Okay, it's after further review, and we're glad you're hanging along with us. If you are not on Twitter, which probably applies to a great majority of you, this story probably caught you off guard, but I will explain. So Chris Lowe over at On3 on Monday morning reported that he spoke to Charlie Weis, and that Charlie Weis is not interested in the New York Giants, is not interested in an NFL job, that he is going to stay at LSU. The quote from Charlie Weis Jr., quote, "I'm fired up about finishing the job at Ole Miss and the future at LSU." Again, Weis, no interest in the NFL, committed to LSU, report from Chris Lowe. As a random aside, if you do not follow Chris Lowe on Twitter, I would highly recommend you do. Chris Lowe and Lane Kiffin have a great relationship. A lot of news, I'm guessing, about LSU will be broken through Chris Lowe from Lane Kiffin. Very similar. Bruce Feldman and Ed Ogeron had a great relationship from when Bruce Feldman wrote the book Meat Market, and Coach O was a big feature of that. So they had a great professional relationship. So every time you saw a report from Feldman, it was coming directly from Coach O. Same here with Lowe and Lane Kiffin, and they're going to have that's going to be just something that as a PSA that you should probably know. Well, the reason Lowe needed to put that story out there is because on Sunday, there was a report from the NFL Nation reporter for ESPN for the New York Giants on Sunday about a name to watch to join the offensive staff at the New York Giants, being Charlie Weis. It was Jordan Raanan. Jordan Raanan is the Giants NFL Nation writer, and on Sunday he wrote, "Heard an interesting name as a possibility to work with quarterback Jackson Dart on the next Giants staff. Charlie Weis Jr. Connection to Dart from Ole Miss. Father was a longtime NFL coach. Would be an intriguing option." Again, all he said was that he heard an interesting name. Not that there was mutual interest, not that the Giants were interested, just he heard an interesting name. So that is very ambiguous. But there are two things that become very relevant. Number one is who might have told him that name, and two, the timing. Go back with me, okay? I want you to go back with me. Before Christmas, really after Lane had left Ole Miss for LSU, and I shared with you that Ole Miss was very upset about Lane Kiffin leaving, how he left, manner in which left, all that stuff. And they were going to do everything they could to try to embarrass Lane Kiffin. Remember? I told you. They are the staff members. They were pulling staff from LSU over there. They were going to target LSU players in the portal. They were going to do everything they could to pay and retain their guys to keep them from going to LSU. They were going to go after Louisiana high school recruits intentionally, all for the optics of being able to say, you see, those coaches didn't want to be with Lane Kiffin. You see, those players didn't want to follow Lane Kiffin. You see, those players wanted to come to Ole Miss to play for Frank Wilson. And it's all optics. This is another one of those situations. And the timing was no coincidence. While LSU was hosting Brendan Sorsby on campus, one of the top quarterback targets in the portal, this news leaks out there. Do you think anyone associated with LSU leaked that out there? Nope. Do you think anyone associated with Charlie Weis leaked it out there? Charlie's already got his deal at LSU. And clearly, within 24 hours, has gone to Chris Lowe and said, put this out there, my statement that I'm not going anywhere. So if the New York Giants NFL Nation guy is the one reporting it, and it didn't come from LSU, it didn't come from Charlie Weis, where do you think it came from? Had to be someone connected with Ole Miss. Let's connect the dots. Who is connected to Ole Miss and the New York Giants? Ole Miss Giants, Ole Miss Giants, Ole Miss. Oh! There's a guy who's got his number retired there in Oxford. A lot of connections. Won a couple Super Bowls there with the Giants. It still advises the Giants. Who do you think might have floated that name? Just speculation, right? Look, you can believe what you want. I don't really care. I'm so far down this stupid LSU Ole Miss rabbit hole and have been for 2 months. There ain't no denying that, bro, at this point. Y'all want to doubt if I know what I'm talking about, who I'm talking, that's on you. I'll tell you what I know. You believe what you want. I really don't care. But if at this point you're doubting how far I am down this Ole Miss LSU rabbit hole, go find someone else. Ole Miss is pissed that Lane Kiffin left, the manner in which he left, and they're going to do everything they can. I mean, collectively, the administration, the boosters, everybody, to make sure that they stick it to Lane Kiffin every opportunity they have. So if you think all this pettiness is going to go, it ain't. For whatever it's worth, contractually, Charlie Weis has a buyout that is 300% of his salary, which is $2.5 million, if he leaves LSU before April 1st. That buyout is nullified if he leaves for a head coaching job in college or the NFL, or a play calling position in the NFL. He could not leave for a coordinator job, a play calling job in college football. He could either leave for a head coaching job or a play calling job in the NFL, and the buyout would be nullified. So and then after April 1st, it drops to 100% of his salary, so $2.5 million, then reduces each year subsequent. So he could leave for the NFL as a play caller. He couldn't leave to be a position coach, but he could leave to be a coordinator in the NFL and not pay a buyout. But he said point blank he's not leaving anywhere. And I'm going to tell you this. This is all an extension, too, of all the stupidity that we're seeing with the LSU coaches going back and forth. Charlie Weis wants to stay and coach Ole Miss through the college football playoff, and Pete Golding knows he needs Charlie Weis. The rest of the staff he doesn't really need. And during a time where Ole Miss is preparing a very large file to level tampering allegations against LSU, which whether or not they formally submit it to the NCAA, I don't know, but I will tell you they will leak that. They will, with every bone in my body, I'm certain Ole Miss is going to leak the information that they have because of exactly what I tried. Mark my words. Can we mark the tape on this, please? I'm dead serious. I want you to write this down because Ole Miss is going to leak. They are going to leak the information they have with which they're compiling to allege tampering from Lane Kiffin and the members of the LSU staff. Now, this also makes too much sense. How in the world can you allege tampering if you are allowing those coaches in your building? Hey, man, they're talking to our players. Yeah, they are. They're coaching them every day. Doesn't make any sense. So Pete Golding doesn't want the LSU coaches still in his building. And Lane Kiffin doesn't want his coaches leaving because they're trying to recruit a roster. Neither of these coaches, neither of them want this arrangement. The only thing is that Golding needs Weis, and that's clear. He needs Weis to keep calling plays for them in the playoff. Everyone else doesn't matter a lick. They can get on without it. But Pete Golding said publicly 48 hours ago, our guys are going to be, these coaches will be with us all the way through the playoff. Expect them to be with us. They're invited. And Lane Kiffin has said, I'm going to let him go because I want Ole Miss to win a championship. If all of a sudden the coaches aren't going to Oxford and aren't coaching anymore in the playoffs, then everyone's going to ask one natural question. Well, whose decision was it? Did Pete Golding kick him out, or did Lane Kiffin say you can't go? Either way, it's going to look badly publicly on one of them. And both of these two guys care way too much about that. They care way too much about the optics and the public opinion. And I'm telling you, it is annoying because neither of them want this anymore. Neither of them. And neither of them need it. It's a distraction for Ole Miss, who's trying to win a national championship. It's a detriment to LSU, who's trying to recruit a roster via the portal, and its coaching staff has been going back and forth. So I don't think it's any coincidence that after Friday from this past week, Weis was the only one that went back. And I think Kevin Smith going back on Sunday had more to do with Kejuan Lacey than it did actually preparing for the college football playoff, because there's a growing sentiment. We may get word while I'm on the air today that just like with the announcement of Chambliss staying, Ole Miss has upped the ante to keep Kejuan Lacey in Oxford. And it sounds like that momentum has shifted to him staying. And if that's the case, like that's why Kevin Smith went back, was to go try to make sure Kejuan Lacey ended up in Baton Rouge, which may not really happen. So all that to say, it is petty and annoying and small. I get Ole Miss is pissed. I get it. Their coach left them in the middle of a playoff run. I get it. I do. I can totally sympathize. I do. And they are playing so well, and this is a run like they haven't had in 6 decades, and they feel like it's been muddied by a guy who they thought was their guy. I get it. And there's a lot of ways you can vilify Lane Kiffin. If you want to vilify Lane Kiffin, there are a lot of ways to do it. And I understand LSU folks are going to line up to defend their guy because he's their guy now. Same guy you laughed at and criticized. My hand's in the air too, but you're going to line up to defend your guy. And I think there's a lot of criticism of Lane that's warranted, and he still has a lot to prove. But my goodness, like this entire thing from the Ole Miss side, the inability to focus solely on the main thing, which is go try to win a championship, while continuing to look in your rear view at your former coach and trying to throw jabs and barbs at him to hurt him however you can, is just stupid. And from LSU's perspective and Lane Kiffin's perspective, the task is singular. Build a great roster in this portal class and go win football games. Because all of this ancillary nonsense goes away if Labor Day weekend LSU beats Clemson in Tiger Stadium, and then you're off and running. When September you go to Oxford and you beat Ole Miss, you're off and running. And all of this conversation quiets. It's a long way to go till you get there, and you got a lot of work to do to get there. But that's the only thing that's going to stop it. So prepare yourself, because there's going to be more of this, because little brother in Oxford is proving, again, why they're little brother in Oxford and have been for the last 6 decades. But they are on a hell of a run right now. And in this format, they got a great chance to go win. They can win 2 more games. Wouldn't surprise me a lick if they win their next 2 games and win a championship. Now, I think Indiana's going to win it, but it is it's going to be fascinating to watch the on-field product, and this is clearly going to continue to be fascinating as they move through the college football playoff and throughout this portal cycle. Okay, it's after further review. Let me knock out a break. We'll come back. I'm late. Ross Jackson, we'll talk some Who Dat. Stay here at AFR.
AFR.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. You know what to do. Do what injured people in our state have done for decades. Get Gordon and get it done, no matter what type of accident you've been in. Yes, we talk about car wrecks, big truck wrecks, if it's workers' comp, or lots of different types of accidents. Ultimately, if you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. You can trust the team at Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. They have the resources, the knowledge, the know-how, the experience to get you the most amount of money. If you want to learn about the types of cases they handle, getgordon.com, getgordon.com. You want to see client results, actual clients, and what they've said about their case and how Gordon and his team handled their case, getgordon.com, getgordon.com. You can see the client testimonials on the top of the homepage. You want to chat with an associate? You could do it. getgordon.com, getgordon.com. There's a chat bubble on the homepage. Just click that chat bubble. Boom. In seconds, you're chatting with an associate at Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. Whatever you do, if you've been injured, make sure you get Gordon and get it done.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and oh, we do shutters too.
All right, waiting on Ross Jackson, trying to link up. We're just having a phone issue, or okay. One quick update. So Jace Brown, the Kansas State wide receiver, is on his way to LSU, I'm told. So 3 receivers. So I know Sam Levitt was set to arrive at LSU today, 2 p.m., and then 3 receivers were visiting. Trey Brown from Old Dominion is on campus already. As I was told, the 3 were arriving this afternoon and into the evening. So Trey Brown is one of them. Jace Brown from Kansas State is on the way, and I have not yet gotten word on who the 3rd is. Want to do, I'll let you know. Saints, yep. Oh, what? Okay. Saints season wrapped. Year 1 of the Kellen Moore era, 6-11. Ross Jackson was there every step of the way. He was in Atlanta on Sunday. He's with us now. How are you, dude?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, always. Okay, if I was asking you to write the lead for the 2025 season, the postmortem, how would it look or read?
The New Orleans Saints just finished the most optimistic 6-11 season that the Big Easy has seen probably in its history.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons for that. Let's start with probably the most obvious, which is Tyler Shuck. Suffice to say, Ross, the Saints are going into this offseason not looking for a quarterback. They feel like they got their guy they want to build around. How optimistic would you say the organization is internally about Shuck that they found their guy?
Yeah, I think they're very, very optimistic. And I think you're right to say, look, they're going into 2026 knowing that they don't have to go and look for a quarterback. But I don't think they're going to push the agenda around the idea that he's a franchise quarterback. They're going to let that kind of happen organically, give him 2026 and allow him to be able to do all that. Not because they don't believe that he can do it, but, Mickey Loomis has kind of gone on record already as saying, look, they don't want to put that kind of pressure on the young quarterback coming out of his rookie season. But there's a lot of promise there. There's a lot of optimism and certainly momentum around what Tyler Shuck was able to do, particularly in his starts towards the end of the season. And you've seen the way that the players have rallied around him, have talked about him. Chris Olave, talking about kind of being his front runner for Rookie of the Year and really pushing that. And guys like Demario Davis and Chase Young talking about, having their solidified QB1 and everything. I think there's a lot of optimism around where things are going with Tyler Shuck at the starting quarterback spot.
Ross, for all the talk about offense, and it's justified because of the excitement around Shuck, for me, the biggest or maybe most surprising storyline was the defense, which, Ross, a year ago, they were bad. They were they finished 30th in the NFL in total defense. It was a bad defense. And throughout the course of this year, they became one of the best defenses. How did Brandon Staley do it as this season unfolded?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is that Brandon Staley is a really good defensive coach. I mean, he's an outstanding defensive mind. But I think that he also got the right guys. Remember at the beginning of the year, Matt, we were talking about, Brandon Staley's coming in. He's a really good coach, but he's a 3-4 guy. Do they have the personnel to do it? And early on in the season, it didn't look like they did. And then throughout the year, as everybody kind of settled into their new roles, and all of a sudden Carl Granderson's over here snagging interceptions, and Chase Young's got as Carl Granderson called it yesterday, a 10-piece chicken nugget. He's got a 10-sack season under his belt now. Cam Jordan's revitalized. I think he just did a really good job of finding ways to utilize the players, the talent of the players that he had in the system that he runs, and he did it really successfully. There's a lot of stuff that the Saints kind of ranked top 10 in on defense. I'm actually working on this story right now over at LouisianaSports.net, and a big part of total defense, yards per play, rushing yards per play, all in the top 10 in the NFL. But rushing yards per play stands out to me big time because they faced the third most rushes in the NFL, And we're talking about a team that was 31st in yards per rush last year. And now all of a sudden they were a top 10 run defense in that category specifically. I think the job that Brandon Staley did with this New Orleans Saints defense with a roster he majority inherited is remarkably impressive. And so I hats off to him, hats off to the players as well for contributing there. I'm really intrigued and interested to see what kind of shifts and changes happen over the course of this offseason to maybe better tool the roster to what it is that Brandon Staley wants to do moving forward.
Russ, how much, if I were to play devil's advocate, of the defensive improvement had to do with the fact that you faced the Seahawks and the Bills and the Niners and the Bears and the Rams all in the first half of the season, and the improvement came in the second half when it was a lot of NFC South and Dolphins and Jets and Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about how much this team struggled in 2024 on the defensive side, right? And that was a year where they were facing a bad Dallas Cowboys team. They were going up against that same NFC South division. They were taking on teams like the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants, and the Washington Commanders at that time were probably a little bit better than they are now, but this team also played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Las Vegas Raiders last season. And I think you saw this defense with a lot of the same personnel, but with a different system, different coach, different leadership, struggle facing an easy schedule. This time, even if we wanted to say that they did face an easy schedule this year, which they did, if you look at strength of schedule, they excelled in those situations. So I think that if we applied that logic in 2025, going back to 2024, you could still mark the improvement from one easy schedule to the next.
Ross Jackson, you can read him at louisianasports.net. Listen or watch Locked on Saints every single day. Okay, let's talk about Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, and Kellen Moore, the head coach. Let's start with Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator. I know you charted so much of this throughout the start of the season, where, and I can't cite, chapter and verse here, but about some of the struggles and maybe predictability the Saints had. What was the biggest evolution as a play caller you saw from Kellen Moore this year?
Yeah, I think probably the most poignant two things were, or the two standout things were the improvement of their red zone offense, right? We were talking about this team being one of the worst red zone offenses in the last 20 years. The last 10 years. We're talking about 317 out of 320 over the course of the last 10 seasons, decade.
Say that again? Say that again?
Yeah, so out of the 320 seasons, I think this was up to week 12 or maybe through week 12, the Saints' red zone to touchdown conversion percentage ranked 317 out of 320, right? 32 teams, 10 seasons, right? And so that's where they were. And then towards the back half of the year, they became one of the best red zone offenses. And I think some of that, just to answer your question specifically about play calling, some of that was about being able to run the football more effectively in the red zone, getting away maybe from a little bit of like the Taysom Hill desire to put the ball in his hands in those short yardage situations and letting his rookie quarterback work in those sites as well. I mean, you saw the value of that in yesterday's game. There was the offensive pass interference call, but it was Tyler Shuck's mobility that almost got a touchdown in the back of the end zone to Kevin Austin Jr. were it not for that OPI call, which seemed like incidental contact. But so I think that was number one. I think the other thing, too, was Kellen Moore got way more comfortable towards the end of the season. Either him or at least the execution got more comfortable. So it would either be that he got comfortable doing it or he stressed it enough that the players got comfortable doing it, coached it up enough, was scheming wide receivers. And so finding ways to create traffic jams, finding ways to take advantage of eye candy, get the defense looking one way while you go and attack the other. I think he got really, really comfortable with all of those things and challenging some of those defensive tendencies, eye discipline, things like that.
Well, I think it also happens when you have elite weapons like Ronnie Bell, who can catch touchdowns.
Yeah, they'll do it. I mean, big difference maker right there.
Isn't that like a great testament, though, as well? Like, it didn't matter what dudes they were running out there. They were still finding ways to produce.
Absolutely. And even that touchdown that we just talked about, right? The guy that caught the touchdown was Kevin Austin Jr., who I think going into the game had barely over 100 scrimmage yards on the season. And then the guy that was called for the offensive pass interference penalty was, Dante Pettis, who had mostly been a return specialist for them. But Dante Pettis also had this big catch and run at an earlier point in the game against Atlanta. Had a great one against Tennessee, unfortunately fumbled before he got into the end zone. But really good work from Kellen Moore and this New Orleans Saints offense of being able to elevate some of those role players into contributors when they needed to do that later on in the season. And you think about an Atlanta Falcons team and all the resources that they put into their roster over the course of the offseason, being sort of these offseason champions coming into 2025, 2026, they won against New Orleans by 2 points with the Saints rolling out. By the time that the game was over, only 3 starters around Tyler Shuck by the time that game was over. I think that's a pretty good testament to where the Saints were on offense as well.
Dog, I've never even heard of Samori Toure. Never heard that name in my life.
Nebraska legend Samori Toure. Come on now.
I'm sure he is. Never heard of him. But that dude's out there like on a football Sunday, like getting targets.
And he was giving his all too. Every chance he got to dive, he did.
Again, like respect. Like, I mean, that dude's playing in the NFL. Respect, but I mean.
Right.
Anyway, Ross Jackson, 2 more things for you. LouisianaSports.net, Locked on Saints. Number 1, all right, Kellen Moore as a head coach. Look, it wasn't that long ago, Ross. I'm out there watching him like not realize he can actually call timeouts at the end of a half in week 1 against the Cardinals. And now it feels like he evolved. In what ways did you see that for Kellen Moore, the head coach?
Yeah, the game management side was a big part of it for me. Certainly that in terms of his ability, kind of getting more comfortable, knowing when to utilize those timeouts. He even won 2 challenges by the time the season was over. He was on a cold streak on challenges as well. And so I think those pieces were absolutely there. I think the other thing is sort of the intangible nature that he brought as a head coach and sort of creating this culture, vying for a winning culture at the end of the season as opposed to settling for draft capital. I'm a big believer that the best building blocks that you can put together aren't necessarily your draft picks. It's the culture that you bring those draft picks into. And I think that Kellen Moore created something that players are going to want to be a part of. And then even down to, he handed out, 13? No. He handed out 13 game balls in 1 week and then 9 game balls the next week. So it was 22 game balls in 2 weeks to players over, things like, hey, you got your first career touchdown. You have this many sacks. You did this, you did that. Just giving out sort of these accolades to these players so that they all felt like they were a part of everything. And I think that those were other places where you certainly saw him get a little bit more comfortable throughout the season of being authentic and leading the way that he wanted to lead in that locker room.
Last thing, as they go into the offense, as they go into the off season, how do you prioritize needs for this roster?
I start on the offense. We have to acknowledge that this was since the year 2000, the worst first quarter team we've seen in the NFL in terms of point differential, minus 93 points in the first quarter. And the next worst after that was minus 92, but it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2011. So it's been a while since we've seen an offense that struggled this much to start early. And so I think that's got to be a big thing that you're looking at is on the offensive side, adding up more firepower, giving your rookie quarterback the tools that he needs to, A, be protected on the offensive line, which I think free agency provides you that, and then B, go out there and take, instead of elevating those role players into contributors, elevating contributors into playmakers, elevating playmakers into elite pieces. And so if you can do that in a draft by putting some juice around him, if you will, I think that's got to be kind of the way that I would look at prioritizing the offseason. I do think that there's value in adding on the defensive side, don't get me wrong, but I really feel like a heavy offensive focus could go a long way for this team in the offseason.
If you aren't subscribed yet, podcast or YouTube, make sure you do it. Locked on Saints every single day, and you can read him for free over at LouisianaSports.net. He's Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson NOLA, if you want to get him on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Always appreciate it, man. Thanks for the work this year.
Thank you, buddy. Always appreciate you. Take care. Stay safe. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. That's Ross Jackson. It is After Further Review. We're brought to you by Shawbills Tire and Auto Service. ShawBillsTire.com. The holidays are behind us, but it's never a bad time, especially with Louisiana weather and Louisiana roads, to get out and see our friends over at Shawbills if you need that work done to your vehicle. They've been nominated over at Shawbills in the Advocates Best of Baton Rouge. You can go vote. They got the links there at their Facebook page and on their social media. Shawbills Tire and Auto Service, proudly serving Baton Rouge and South Louisiana since 1968. They're pushing 6 decades now since they opened their doors. And you want to know how you stay in business that long? Because you give people the best tires at a great price. And when they're there, they treat you like family. And so you keep coming back year after year after year. That's Shawbills. Pretty easy. Shawbills Tire and Auto Service. ShawBillsTire.com. Shawbills, where we keep you rolling. All right, y'all. Halfway home here on this Monday edition. Thanks for being here. Happy New Year to everybody who's hanging out with us. Hope you had a great, safe, happy, healthy celebration, a wonderful, prosperous 2026. Let me knock out a quick break. When we come back, I want to kind of give you an update on the state of the running back room at LSU with exactly the conversations I had with both Attorney Chris Perrette and District Attorney Hiller Moore about JT Lindsey. I'll share with you the conversations I had with those two men on Sunday about JT Lindsey's situation, with actually an update on Lindsey's opportunity to return to LSU in 2026. We'll get into all that next on AFR.
AFR.
We're brought to you by the Watermark and the Renaissance, moving into 2026. And if you're planning an event in 2026, make sure that you call my friend Allison Crump. She's the event coordinator of both the Renaissance and the Watermark. The Watermark's downtown, the Renaissance Southtown. We talk about the Renaissance right there on Bluebonnet in Baton Rouge near I-10, across from the mall in Perkins Row. Beautiful, sprawling hotel with more than 13,000 square feet of meeting space. And they can manipulate any nook and cranny of their building to host your event, to accommodate your event. I told you, we had the launch party for LouisianaSports.net. We had it at the Renaissance, but what they did was they brought a small riser, put it on the side of Tallulah, the restaurant where I did my show. They brought a makeshift, like a portable bar that they wheeled in there for our guests. And in the lobby area that went indoor, outdoor into the terrace, that's where our guests were able to hang indoor, outdoor flow. No matter how big your event, what type of event, make sure you know about Renaissance Baton Rouge. Right there on Bluebonnet, it's Renaissance Baton Rouge.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and oh, we do shutters too.
Rolling along here, Monday edition of AFR. First show of 2026. Happy New Year. Glad you're hanging out with us. We always appreciate Relief Windows and reliefwindows.com. LSU has to make over their offense here in this 2026 portal cycle. I don't think that's breaking news to anyone. One of the positions that is certainly worth talking about is the running back spot. I want to kind of give you a bit of a whip around here and what's happening and what we're looking forward to at running back. Because as you well know, I was able to break the story over at LouisianaSports.net on New Year's Eve. Harlem Berry agreed to a deal to return to LSU. That was fantastic news. I know there were a lot of folks that were nervous that Berry would follow Frank Wilson to Ole Miss. It was very clear that Harlem Berry wanted to be at LSU, and this new staff came in and prioritized Harlem Berry. Now, and they got that deal done, and I told you before we went on vacation, there were 5 players that LSU would prioritize. It was Harlem Berry, it was Whit Weeks, it was Trey'Dez Green, it was center Braylon Moore, and who am I missing? DJ Pickett. So 4 of those 5 are done. The one we're waiting on is Braylon Moore, and I was told on Saturday that they are nearing a deal. It's basically just working out the verbiage in the contract, but that they're working on finalizing a deal for Braylon Moore to return, which would be fantastic news. But as a result, what that meant was with Berry returning, and with all of the conversation about LSU trying to add Kejuan Lacey, which I have no problem on the record saying this, Ole Miss had a $1.8 million offer on the table for Kejuan Lacey. He was still expected to join Kevin Smith in Baton Rouge. In the last 48 hours, that momentum has shifted as Ole Miss has prioritized retaining Kejuan Lacey. I'm trying to get what that number is, but I was told LSU was willing to go above that 1.8 to get him, and Ole Miss may have countered even higher. So if I get that number, I'll tell you. But it feels like that has shifted, and I would not be surprised at this point if you hear an announcement from Ole Miss of Lacey staying, similar to what you got at Trinidad Chambliss. Well, with Berry returning, the smoke around Kejuan Lacey, their LSU running backs went in the portal. Caden Durham in the portal, Caleb Jackson in the portal, Juwan Johnson in the portal. You did not sign a running back in this most recent class. So you've got Harlem Berry. It was your only scholarship running back. LSU has added a running back in Racine Guillory out of Utah. Now, he's a freshman, 5'9", 192. He's got a relationship with Kevin Smith. So there's a little bit, he's from Fort Worth, so a little bit of knowledge there of the prospect. And then over the weekend, they had Carter Vargas on a visit. Now, Carter Vargas is from UC Davis, 2 seasons there at UC Davis. This season, just 67 carries for 445 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that would be a depth piece behind Harlem Berry. But you probably still need more. And again, there's uncertainty now about Kejuan Lacey, as that feels like that has shifted toward Lacey staying in Oxford. Now, again, wouldn't be surprised if you hear an announcement soon about Lacey staying at Ole Miss. But JT Lindsey becomes the really interesting other possibility here. So remember JT Lindsey, he was from Alexandria, was a top 150 overall player in the country, top 10 running back in the 2025 class. Shows up at LSU, he's going through fall camp, and then he gets arrested. He's charged with accessory after the fact. If you don't remember the story, there were two men who were charged with murder or wanted on murder charges, and JT Lindsey let them stay at his dorm on campus. Now, he cooperated fully with investigators, and with everything I've been able to learn about this, he told investigators he had no idea that those two men were wanted for anything, and they just sort of rode around on scooters and stayed at his apartment or his dorm on campus for a couple of days in July. Well, because he had felony charges against him, the university policy is that if you have a felony charge, you are ineligible. Now, you can still go to class, and you can still use facilities. You're just suspended from team activities. So Lindsey continued working out at football ops. He went to class. Chris Perrett told me that Lindsey was actually made the dean's list in the fall semester, made a 3.4 GPA, so congrats to him. And on New Year's Eve, Chris Perrett was notified in writing from the district attorney that they filed formal notice with the sheriff and LSU PD declining prosecution of Lindsey. So that's fantastic news that JT Lindsey has had this legal situation cleared up. So he has been reinstated by the university to the football team, and I can confirm that JT Lindsey has met with Lane Kiffin, Kevin Smith's staff, and they have invited him to return in 2026 if he wants to. Now, Lindsey has entered his name into the transfer portal. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to test the market, to see what's out there, if there is an opportunity for him elsewhere. But I think this is something where you could see some shift in momentum. Again, I don't know what JT Lindsey is planning to do, but a lot of the momentum in the push with the running back room was about retaining Harlem Berry and getting Kewan Lacey. I told you earlier that Kevin Smith went back to Oxford on Sunday, and I don't think that was to work with this team in advance of the semifinal. I think that was to go try to recruit Kewan Lacey to LSU, and I don't know that it's going to work. But if Lacey ends up staying at Ole Miss, and you've got Harlem Berry, and then now you've got Racine Guillory committed, who really had one rushing attempt this year at Utah and sort of a depth piece, you're going to have to fill that running back room with multiple bodies. You can't go into the season with two. I mean, you'd love 4 or 5 scholarship running backs at a time. Again, you've got Carter Vargas, who took a visit this past weekend. We'll see what happens there from UC Davis. We'll see what happens with him there. But JT Lindsey remains an option. And as I've been told, he has been given the opportunity to rejoin the team in 2026 by the staff if he chooses to. So one worth watching as this portal cycle spins. We'll see if he takes visits, what he chooses to do. But remember, that was a top 10 running back in the country from Alexandria who has the opportunity to return and could very well be a very, very solid fallback plan for this new staff if, in fact, Kewan Lacey ends up picking Ole Miss. But until that happens, we'll see what happens as this moves along. It's just hard to imagine the targets that LSU would have from Ole Miss, as we've talked about, going into the portal until their season is over. So a lot of people have asked, how did Ole Miss beating Georgia affect LSU? Well, in this way. If Ole Miss had lost to Georgia on New Year's Day, I think on January 2nd, all those coaches would have been in Baton Rouge, and the Ole Miss players that were toying with the idea of going in the portal that through their representation had agents or had deals in place from LSU would have been in the portal. But Ole Miss won. The coaches have continued sort of the back and forth, and those players haven't entered the portal, and it's allowed Ole Miss to continue recruiting them, prioritizing them. And I think you have a very strong feeling from Ole Miss boosters like, we're not going to let LSU come and poach our roster. And so they're opening checkbooks. And listen, success begets success. And when you have success, it's easier to go to boosters and say, hey, we want to keep this guy. They're trying to get him. Can you help us out even more? And I think you're seeing a lot of that motivation in Oxford right now. So, yes, absolutely. Ole Miss winning has complicated the plan via the portal and the roster-building plan for LSU in many different ways. And certainly running back is one of those key ways. So we'll continue to follow that as it develops. But keep an eye on JT Lindsey and what happens there again. He's been legal situation's been cleared up. He's been reinstated by LSU, and he has an offer from Lane Kiffin and the staff to return in 26 if he chooses, so one to watch. All right, it's After Further Review. We're brought to you by Arco Power Systems, arco.com, 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 ARCCO, arco.com. Man, what a great business. Such an impressive business if you're not familiar. They're on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge, but they've got offices all over this sort of quad state area, from far east to Mobile, west to San Antonio, north to Little Rock. If you're just draw a big circle. If you're anywhere in that circle and you're a business, grocery stores, gas stations, banks, hospitals, schools, industrial facilities, municipalities, and power goes out, and say, what do we do when power goes out? ARCO. Industrial standby Generac generators for your industrial facility, for your business. You need ARCO Power Systems. Check them out online at arco.com. Everything's turnkey. ARCCO, arco.com, arco.com, arco.com. Okay, y'all, it is After Further Review. We'll knock out our final break of hour number 2 on this Monday edition of AFR presented by Relief Windows. We'll do Tigers and the Pros. We will give you sort of a full portal recap, who's visited, who's committed, who's leaving, all that stuff coming up here in about 15 minutes from right now. So stay with us on AFR.
AFR.
REV. Let's Rev. Let'sRev.com, Let'sRev.com, Let'sRev.com. A Rev trenching front yards in my neighborhood as we speak. Well, actually, I don't know if they're literally doing it right now at 4:47 p.m. Central Time on a Monday, but they are trenching our neighborhood as they're laying fiber throughout my neighborhood. Maybe they've done it for yours as well. And if you're not sure, it's worth a call to Rev. Or visit the website at Let'sRev.com, Let'sRev.com, REV. Let'sRev.com is the website. Listen, we're talking about an all-fiber network, lightning-fast internet speeds up to 5 gigs. You ever get sick of slow internet, the little wheel spinning? Maybe as you're watching your connected TV, if it's a little slow, what if you had speeds up to 5 gigs backed by the power of an all-fiber network, which means when the storm comes, the wind blows, knocks tree branches on your power line, knocks power, you don't have to worry about it because the lines are underground. That's Rev. R-E-V. Let'sRev.com, Let'sRev.com. Let'sRev.com.
After Further Review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and oh, we do shutters too.
Wrapping up hour number 2, presented by Relief Windows. Talk some portal with the regular season over, the season over for the New Orleans Saints. We know where they'll draft and who their opponents for 2026 will be, as they'll play a last place schedule. So we'll get some of that coming up here in about 20, 25 minutes or so. Oh, and there was a football game in Pasadena on New Year's Day that I haven't talked about yet. Might find my way, stumble upon that coming up in hour 3. I don't know if we'll have time. I don't know. I don't know if we'll have time. We have time for right now is Muso, Tigers and the Pros.
Tigers in the Pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
All right, we'll start with Browns-Bengals from Sunday. Joe Burrow, 236 yards, just 10 incompletions in the game. 236, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Also toted the ball twice for 17 yards. You might be guessing or assuming that Jamar Chase is on the receiving end of a lot of it. He was. 8 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown for Jamar Chase. Bengals missed the playoffs. Grant Delpit was on the other side for Cleveland and had a really nice day. 10 total stops for the former Tiger safety, including a sack of Joe Burrow, and he also had an additional hit on the quarterback as well. Justin Jefferson, his quest for 1,000 yards was successful. Just getting over the hump there was Jefferson. Only 2 touchdowns on the season, though. Capped off with an 8-reception, 101-yard day. Damone Clark was a star for the Houston Texans. 6 tackles to lead the team on Sunday against the Colts. Not to be outdone, Danielle Hunter, 2 stops, including a sack, his 15th sack of the season. That now gives him 4 straight seasons with double-digit sacks, 7 of those seasons overall in his career. Devin White closed out a really strong campaign as well. 6 stops in the game, a sack and a half in the game, and an additional hit on the quarterback also. Really nice bounce-back year for Devin White. Kayvon Chason, 3 stops and a sack in that game for New England as they just bludgeoned the Dolphins. And then a quick hat tip here. Mekhi Wingo and Jalen Mills, both in action for the Lions on Sunday, both of them with 2 stops in the game. Jalen Mills joined them pretty late in the season. That's Tigers and the Pros.
Presented by Rouse's. Rouse's.com. Rouse's.com. Holiday is behind us, but man, it's always a good day to get by Rouse's. Maybe you're making groceries for your mom and them. Get them by Rouse's. Really convenient way to do that is pull out the Rouse's app. Remember, your personal shop, pick out your items. Your personal shopper will go pick them up for you. And if it's $35 or more, pay for it in the app. That service is free. Pull up into one of the designated spots. They'll bring it out to your vehicle. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but it's king cake time, y'all. You want to get the best king cake in the world? You go to Rouse's. All the different flavors, delicious, and shipping nationwide. Go to Rouses.com, Rouses.com, Rouses.com. Order online at Rouses.com. Rouses, this feels like home. Okay, SportsCenter's coming up. Get you caught up on national headlines. I might go to Rouse's later tonight. Give me some sardines. How's that sound, Muse? Sardines for dinner. Had some for lunch today.
Sounds good to you.
Had some for lunch. Don't be a punk. Don't believe the propaganda. Sardines are delicious. Get you some sardines. Trust me. Safe.
After further review.
Man, I am so excited as we move into 2026 to continue another year of our partnership with Our Lady of the Lake, championship health partner of LSU athletics. You know, Our Lady of the Lake and LSU should be synonymous. When you think Our Lady of the Lake, think LSU. When you think LSU, think Our Lady of the Lake. Of course, the physicians at Our Lady of the Lake, incredible. They do an amazing job of caring for the LSU student athletes, but also the LSU students, as Our Lady of the Lake has the contract for the LSU Student Health Center there as well. You know, maybe you find yourself in need of seeing a physician on short notice. They have the Lake After Hours clinics. As a matter of fact, Erica came down with strep throat during the holiday. About 8 o'clock at night, had to roll her into one of the Lake After Hours clinic. Or maybe you want to see your GP, Dr. Kurt Chastain, part of the Lake Men's Health Group. That's where I'm a member. No matter what subspecialty you may need, Our Lady of the Lake can care for you. It's Our Lady of the Lake and LSU. Together, we roar.